I have already met one of my soulmates, and this was the biggest revelation to me a couple of days ago, where I remember the first time that I met him, and by the way, he turned out to be my husband later down the line. But I remember first when I met him, it was this feeling of just knowing him for decades. And he made me feel so comfortable. He made me feel like he just got me. He just got my weirdness, my silliness. And I just felt so safe with him. I got butterflies the first time I met him. And I have been looking for that feeling for such a long time. And so when he came in front of me, I realized that this is somebody special. I just felt energetically a pull towards him. He made me feel understood and seen and heard. And I have not felt that even in my house and, with my parents. And so when I felt that, it just felt so amazing. I'm like, oh my God, I have found him. I have found my home. And that feeling is something that I cannot explain. Only when you go through it, when you meet your soulmate, you feel that. And the reason I wanted to speak about this is because so many of us, including myself, especially when I was going through my separation and just going through this dark night of the soul and just my whole ego death and everything was falling apart. When I decided to get the separation, so many things that were insane started happening. I could not find an apartment. Everybody was saying no. I couldn't find a job. I then randomly got served $50,000, a lawsuit of a car accident I had the year before. It was like when I got served, I thought, God, you have to be joking right now. This is actually ridiculous. And at that point, I'm like, do I even cry? Do I jump off where do I go? I don't know what to do from here. And as I was going through that, I realized, once I heal and once I get better, I'm going to eventually find my soulmate, and that thought came in my head. And as I'm thinking about it, and it's funny, I'm thinking about it after a long time, I was like, I had already met my soulmate. This person that I met was in alignment with my soul. And I'm going to explain a little bit over here what I mean by that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Kabbalah as well. So if you're interested, stay tuned. He had all the qualities that I was yearning for. He was confident. He was smart. He was focused. He was motivated. He was disciplined. And I was not. I was much of a people pleaser. Be nice to everybody. Don't step on anybody's toes. Don't outshine because other people are going to feel bad about it. And so we were, in that sense, the complete opposites. By the way, the reason I want to share this with you all is because a lot of the times you might think, oh, I attracted this person and they ruined my life and all of these things. But if you really go back to how did you feel when you first met them? And usually you might say that we had an amazing connection. I felt like I knew her for ages. And it just felt like an inner knowing, like you're meant to be with them. Even it might have not made any sense, but deep down, you're like, this makes sense to me. And so I just want you to have a bit of an awakening that none of your relationships were a mistake. They were not because you're horrible, because you missed a red flag, because X, Y, Z, and so on and so forth. It really has to do with that was your soul's path, and that person was meant to correct couple of things within you in order to help your soul grow and evolve, okay? So the qualities that I was yearning for was confidence, he was focused, motivated, and disciplined, and he had some great boundaries, okay? And I was the complete opposite. I was insecure, anxious, still finding my worth, go with the flow kind of energy. Okay, so we both were very, very different people. And so his soul was actually helping me learn these qualities. And of course, I did not notice that when it was happening, but I soon enough realized that whatever I was lacking, he had, and whatever he was lacking, like for example, Empathy. I had plenty of empathy. And so all of these qualities needed to combine in order for us to become whole, become one. And so he really came into my life to awaken that inside of me. But here's the truth that nobody tells you. Your soulmate isn't always the one that you stay with, because that's what we think. We meet our soulmate, we're there with them, we're with them forever and ever and ever. And it just, I feel like a lot of that has come from movies and, fairy tales and Disney. But sometimes that soulmate could come into your life in order to shake you awake to all of the healing that you're meant to be doing in this lifetime. And so I really want us to look at soulmates from a different perspective, basically. Every trigger is your biggest teacher, which is the hardest lesson for a lot of us to understand and to wrap their heads around, including myself. Because when I'm triggered, I'm like, oh my God, why can't they just act like this? Why can't they just do this and say this and act how I want them to act? Why can't they just do that? Then we would all be so much happier. Why can't they just believe in things I believe in, And we totally forget that the world, the universe is created of so many different souls, opinions, energies, and we are all meant to learn from each other. Even the people that are unconscious, that are sleeping, that are complaining, that are etc., etc. We are also meant to learn from them. What I used to think back in the day is that because I'm so, I'm so aware and I'm so empathetic and all these kind of great qualities that I have, that means that I get to judge other people that are in lower frequencies. And I can say, you know what? You, you should not be around me because you'll bring my energy down and all, these things that I used to think, and a lot of us do think like that. But the people that you're looking at and you're like, oh my God, why are they saying these things? Or why are they doing these things? They are actually your biggest teachers because they're there to teach you how to be patient, how to accept other people's opinions that sometimes makes no sense to you. But you don't have to disagree. You don't have to fight every battle that comes in your way. You can just choose to observe and watch them having that experience. That's all you're meant to do sometimes. You're not meant to add and say, no, but what about this? And try to prove and try to fix. That's what I love to do all day long. And that's why I feel like I know this person so well, because I'm that person and I still struggle with it. The other day I was talking to, my daughter and my daughter's father. And I had a moment where I wanted to correct, I did correct him on something that was so, it was silly. And it's like my body, sometimes it's so subconscious. I don't even realize I'm doing it sometimes. And my daughter went, why are you saying that? Why, and she caught that. And I'm like, oh my God. And literally this is why I want to make this video for people where, especially if you're somebody who's doing the work and you're more in the spiritual realm of things and you're trying to be better, you sometimes think that you know better and everybody should be in line with what you think. And that is where sometimes that ego can get us all. That could be your downfall. Instead of just lending your consciousness, and I know this is more difficult than we might realize, but just lending your consciousness. So not saying anything, not adding anything to that, but just observing, which I'm going to get into. And so in Kabbalah, they have something called tikkun, which means soul correction. Okay? And I learned about this and it blew my mind. And I feel like everybody needs to go and just learn about it. I mean, I know... I'm not even going to say who said this, but somebody, when I was talking to them about Kabbalah, they said, this is a cult, this is this, and they had these opinions, Everybody's perspective is so different. And again, this was my test to be like, try to fight with him on it, or should I just be like, well, that's interesting. You think that? Okay, could be true, could not be true, whatever. Like, every time that somebody's going to push back on your opinions and make you feel small or make you feel like ridiculous about whatever, that is your biggest gift and that is your trigger. That is your test. And that is how you're here to correct your soul. And so what we all need to realize is that our soul actually chooses the exact people. So our parents, friends, partners, kids, your soul chooses the exact people who are going to trigger us, because those moments are the only way that your soul can get corrected and you're able to evolve to a higher dimension. Before our souls even came on earth, our souls made a contract, okay? And so what happens is that I will attract people in my life that are going to trigger me the exact ways that will teach me how to grow. And in order to teach me that, they are going to cause me some amount of pain, some amount of triggering, some amount of friction, in order for me to learn that this is a issue that I'm having with. For example, I didn't know my worth. I was not confident in myself. I didn't believe in myself. So on and so forth. I can go on. And so he taught me then how to really respect myself, because he treated me in a way that was not in alignment with how my soul wanted to be treated. And so what I did was, after a long time, I realized this is not in alignment with me anymore, because there had to be some sort of a darkness within that relationship. And that's when I realized, wait, this is not how I want to continue, or this is not the relationship that I want it to be. And in order to make it better, either we both have to work on it together, or I have to leave the relationship. And a lot of people, what they do is they are afraid to leave relationships because of kids, which is like, to me, it's like, that's not an excuse, because my parents stayed from me for so many years and it damaged me more than it did any sort of good. There was not one positive that came out of them being together. Not one. And it really depends on how that relationship is. But if you're constantly fighting, you can't get along, and you might think, oh, my kids are not, no, they don't know, what's really happening. They know. Kids can feel energies. They know more than you think. They know. They're more smarter than you think. And so we as parents really need to do better. If you feel like, okay, well, we want to work on this together, that's fantastic. Actually do the work, and that's amazing. Your kids will see that as role models. They're going to learn that when two people grow apart, or when they're going through an issue, that they can actually come back together, and that's even beautiful. Or that you both are taking accountability and saying, listen, we have to be honest with ourselves. This is not really working out for us, and we have to now take a different step. But we still can be a loving family. We still can do things together. So it's really about just taking accountability, ownership. And if one party doesn't want to do that, then unfortunately, most of the time, couple has to separate, right? And so in this lifetime, because I'm sure we've had other lifetimes together, and I feel like a lot of our soulmates, we meet in different lifetimes for different reasons. And so in this lifetime, he didn't come to complete me, but he came to really reveal parts of me that I was hiding, that I was masking, because I was too ashamed of myself. I was guilty. I was lying to myself majority of the time. So one of our soul corrections is actually control. We both have a problem with control, okay? But the only thing here is, though, is that we control different aspects of ourselves and other people. So let me give you a little example. So one of the ways that I controlled is through emotions, proving, and fixing. So I was always trying to be the good one, the right one. You don't know anything because you're not that conscious. And you need to do some more work. I've done a lot of work. So, it just cracks me up. So it's just funny how honest I'm being in this video, because I better get some 10 extra subscribers just by this. But this is really my issue right here. And his controlling nature came through distance, dominance, and detachment. And so we can go really deep into this, but I just wanted to make this very easy and simple to understand. So if you guys can see, this was the way that he was trying to control, and this is the way that I was trying to control. So at the end of it, we both had to mirror each other's controlling nature to realize that we both have this problem that we need to correct. By the way, this all was in our soul contract. And so basically, this dynamic not just happened with him, it also happened with my father quite a lot, which is every time, and it actually did start with him because my dad was super controlling. I used to call him Hitler. Anyway, so every time that he tried to control me, I try to control him back. And so I wanted him to see how wrong he was and how right I was, and I wanted him to admit it. Okay? And again, I thought I was just being a teacher. I was like, I'm just teaching you, like, you should be grateful. But this is actually my ego that was running the show. And this is why I told you guys in my last video, please watch that video thoroughly because I'm literally telling you guys some good information. A lot of the times when you go into this path of spirituality, you sometimes let your ego drive your vessel. So really making sure that when you're coming from, trying to teach somebody or trying to inspire somebody, really make sure you're coming from love and not being triggered and you're using your ego as a technique to get somebody to say, hey, you're so right, you're so correct, and I'm the one that's wrong. That is really not the way to teach. You're not teaching because you want somebody to validate you. You're teaching somebody just because most of the time you should be inspiring people. If somebody's actually asked you, like, can you please help me? You shouldn't be doing this on your own, which is something that I tend to do. And I learned this lesson a long time back, is that you do not need to teach people how to be. They already know how messed up they are, and their soul is eventually going to find the light that they are. Everybody does. And so even though sometimes when you're in a conflict with somebody and you think I'm just, trying to defend myself, which is obviously important to defend yourself, but know that sometimes, when you have that same energy that they do, when they're coming at it with getting defensive and they're getting angry and they're saying, no, but what about this and what about this? And there's no longer harmony within the souls, then what happens is your ego is mirroring ego. So basically, ego plus ego equals a loop. So you basically are in a war with both of your egos, and there's going to be no way out. There's just going to be arguments, there's just going to be fights, and nobody's ever, even when you win the argument, you've never won anything. You just feel like crap. If you, by the way, are in a relationship like this, I would highly suggest that you do some form of reflection on, is this really how your relationship looks? And why is that so? And what can you do about it? Right? It's really just about asking yourself questions, those $1 million questions that is able to wake you up. If you're somebody who tries to force your understanding and like, it should be this way, this is the better way to go about it, and you're trying to force it instead of just maybe stating it once, and then you just observe. You just observe, either if it's your friend or your partner, whoever it is, and they're suffering, you just have to observe. And that's the hardest part about being a human, is like, you just have to watch, and you do not need to fix that person. They're gonna fix themselves. Okay, hold on. And by the way, I'm not a Kabbalah teacher, but I've learned so much where it's like blown my mind away, and I'm like, you know what, if it helps me, then it might help somebody else. So really, this is not about, I'm not starting a cult, I'm not doing any of this. I literally just want to spread the information that I've got and see if maybe it's able to help you. That's literally it. So in Kabbalah, they say that, teaches that when you're forcing understanding, you actually create something called spiritual friction. Oh my God, this blew me away. So instead of forcing an understanding within your partner, within your mother, within whoever, instead of doing what you've always done, why not try to release the need to explain yourself, to explain why you should choose this way. Why are you not doing this? You should think like me. Come on, look at me. Look at my life. It's so amazing. You do not need to explain any of this to people that are in dire need of that sort of advice. But what happens is, God, the universe is going to handle it. All you have to do is to keep walking in your truth, and also just observe, lend your consciousness to them. So when you're watching something and you're like, I want to say this, I want to say this, and you don't, that's when things start changing. I noticed a lot of things around me started changing without me trying to prove, trying to fix, trying to ask, trying to send speeches to somebody. I just surrendered and I said, you know what? I wish them the best. I send them peace and love, and please God help them. And that's all you could do as a human being sometimes. And that's the best route. And you're slowly going to notice that the energy around you starts to shift on its own. It shifts on its own without you doing a single thing. Currently, if you're in a relationship, marriage, somebody in your family where you're just, it's like a push and pull, you're just trying to gain control, they're trying to gain control of you, and you both are losing, the family is losing, everybody's losing. Instead, why don't you just start to accept that you cannot control this person? You can barely control yourself. You cannot control another person. So the best thing is to let it go. Okay, it's not easy. It definitely isn't. But when you start taking little steps, you're going to notice a shift. And all you could do is just trust that your example is going to teach your children, your family members, your friends, whoever, your partner. It's going to teach them what respect, empathy, and awareness really looks like. And they're going to raise to that consciousness. They're going to meet you where you're at. I really hope that you're able to take something from this video and actually use it in your relationships, because you're going to notice a big shift. And basically, this is what it means to act like God. This is what I said in my last video. And it's not by overpowering the darkness, because that's what I like to do myself, is I like to overpower and use my brain power. And I'm like, oh, I have these statistics and knowledge and forcing. And it's really just about being the light that quietly outshines it. You're not trying to prove, fix. You're just in your light, in your, highest consciousness, your highest best self. And everybody around you is slowly going to start noticing. This is the best way to teach a lesson, is just by being that person you're telling other people to be. Start becoming it. Start acting like it. And other people around you will slowly notice, like, wait, why is everything amazing happening in his life? Why did he find his soulmate? Why is he doing so well in his job? People are going to start noticing the work that you're trying to help other people with, and other people are going to notice that, wow, he actually does what he says, and he's not trying to prove. And a lot of people will actually get attracted to that energy when you don't care to prove yourself or your worthiness. They're like, hey, this is how I live. And if somebody's ready to find the answers, they are going to come to you. When the student is ready, the teacher arrives. So you do not need to be a teacher to everybody, like myself. You just wait for people to come to you, and they will start coming to you. You're going to notice. The moment that I stopped reacting and chose awareness instead, that is actually when the light entered. And that is actually what broke the loop. Think of yourself on this ladder. So every time that you pause before reacting, every time that you choose peace instead of proving or fixing, that is when you climb one by one. You climb one rung higher each time, and you're really trying to get here. This test is going to keep on repeating until the lesson is lived. All right, so a lot of the times we notice the same patterns, the same arguments keep on happening, and you're like, why does this keep happening? And then if you take a little bit of time to reflect, and you say, wait, I responded the same way this time, and this time, and this time, and this time. And it's the same, you're like in a roller coaster, you're in a loop. And so just by removing that pull from reacting is going to change the dynamic. And so that is how your soul evolves, and that is how you turn karma into consciousness. One of my tycoons in this life, my soul correction, has been to let go of control. to stop trying to fix, to convince, to prove, and to let love flow without forcing it. And so he was the soul that my higher self chose to teach me that specific lesson, even if it had to break me open to do it. Okay, so really look at the people around you and your relationships as the pathway to correct your soul. Are there certain lessons that keep repeating in your life? Instead, look at it from a bigger point of view. Why did your soul choose these lessons? Have you responded in a different way, or do you keep reacting to those same triggers over and over again, and you're expecting a different result? You're getting frustrated. This is a very bad drawing of a graduation hat. But think of yourself, the more that you become aware, the more that you are more conscious in regards to your reactions in life, you then graduate eventually, or, you just come back again to learn that same lesson all over again. It's, really, as souls, we have free will to do as we please, right? And luckily, we have God, the universe, these energies really helping us to get there. Think about this actually like choosing a major in college. I never went to college, but if I was to, that's how I would look at it. Your soul has chosen these exact lessons, these exact majors before coming into this world to learn specific lessons. For example, to surrender. Most of us have a hard time to surrender, and we love to attach. We love attachments, right? So really surrender, patience, and inner strength. And so it's really important to recognize that sometimes that soul that came into your life didn't really destroy you, but she really came into your life to upgrade your soul, okay, to raise your consciousness. And sometimes that soul was not meant to stay forever, and that is okay. She was meant to awaken that part of you that you chose to awaken. So if you just got out of a relationship with somebody who brought out your deepest, darkest pain, don't assume that you got it wrong. You might have actually met your soulmate, because we all do. Eventually, we all meet that person that we feel a connection to, but they're not always there to remain with us for the rest of our lives. And sometimes they're the one who comes in your life not to love you perfectly, but to make you whole in order for you to receive, your actual soulmate later down the line. If you made it this far, well done. Thank you so much for watching. And again, I do offer single sessions. My breakthrough one-on-one coaching sessions are 1 hour long, and it's on Zoom. Check out the link. It's going to be in the description below, and I will see you guys in the next one.